Chapter 6 Competition Ashir 13th, 2200 MC. The Knighthood Games had finally started that morning. The first game to commence was fencing in the Prana group. Dylan dashed quickly and was on the offensive in that match. The competitor, in the meanwhile, would struggle to counter sword fighting and was stuck on the defensive. But then Dylan smiled and backed away to the opponent surprised. Then the opponent counterattacked, and Dylan swiftly dodged all of his attacks. Dylan, with all his might, aims his wooden sword at his opponent and charges. The man, feeling cornered, then performs a somersault and rolls backwards. But then... Game. That's 2-0. The winner of this match is Dylan Ulrich. The crowd cheered. Dylan then pulled away and let out a battle cry. The opponent was surprised. But how? The referee then spoke. You were out of bounds, sir. You're aware that is an instant loss, yes? Then the man looked at Dylan and thought to himself, so that's why he blocked away. I was so focused that I... He chuckled and left the arena. He'll be a good fighter one day. A cunning one at that. Meanwhile, in the Mana group, Bruno demonstrated his thunder magic. Thunderlemma, Thor's blade. Bruno formed out electricity in the shape of a sword. And then the sword became a large whip. Bruno demonstrated to the crowd the power of one of his best moves. The magic move ended up breaking a massive wall in half. Oliver was observing from the crowd since it wasn't his turn yet. As he was watching, he thought to himself, wow, such powerful mana. Even the best thunder user in my village couldn't reach that level. Wasn't the user who built that Earth-style wall one of the best Earth element magicians? Bruno looked at the crowd, and from afar saw Oliver. Bruno smirked. Oliver then thought to himself, not bad, but I assure you, I am not one to be underestimated just because I'm a commoner. After the last performance of the Thunder Games, last but not least was the Wind Games. First up, we have Theon Oliver Nevins. I hate that they have to call me by my first name, but they said I couldn't enter otherwise. Oh well. Oliver walked to the stage. As he witnessed 2 stone golems being formed in front of him, he said, stone golems? This will be very interesting. In that case, Oliver then pulled out his tome. This spell will be perfect. No one can stop me with this one. I've even beaten some fire users with this one, considering wind does not do well against fire. Oliver then chanted some words out loud. He chanted a magical spell and then underwent a drastic change in appearance. Then he was covered with armor made of wind, mostly resembling a falcon. Wind dilemma, shoes incarnate. A few men in hoods were watching the man perform the skill. Yes, the experiments we did were a success. We did it. Then Oliver proceeded to fly straight into the golems at high speeds. He then spun around, creating a violent turbulence around him. The wings, cut through the golems like glass. Then they both collapsed and broke apart. The audience was in shock. Even the headmaster was flabbergasted. What monstrous power! So, Oliver was afraid of what they would say. He braced for the worst. So cool! Well done, young man. This is Theon Oliver Nevins, everyone. Oliver then blushed a bit. I wasn't expecting this reaction, but I don't dislike it. Guess I'll go with it for now. Oliver then saw Bruno from afar in the audience, but he did not get a positive look. Bruno's expression was terrified, as if he saw a ghost. Yikes, I scared him. Oh well, at least he won't mess with me or Dylan again for sure. Meanwhile, after Oliver left the stage, Bruno was still in shock. That man, Oliver, could he really be that boy from the lab rumors? The wings, the symbol in that dome. So it's true. Bruno then punched a wall. Did he? Bruno's face then looked determined. That's it. I have to find out what happened. A few hours later, the Prana Games were about to conclude soon with the semi-finals in Final Destination. The end was quickly approaching for the Prana Games. Now then, the last battle before semi-finals. In the right side, we have the blind man then steps up. Cormac Udo. On the left side, we have Diego Rios. May the best fighter win. Now, fight! Diego thought to himself, is this guy for real? Blind man. On top of that, he's an archer. I didn't see his performance back there, but I'm pretty sure he's quite the laughing stock. Cormac then spoke. To us, the opposite, I assure you. Diego panicked. What? Can this guy read my mind? Cormac then spoke. Unfortunately, that is something I cannot tell you, ever. The referee then yelled, Ready, fight! Diego was terrified, and then in a panic, he dashed towards him and attacked. Cormac then opened his eye and released his counterattack. Foolish child, you have so much to learn. Cormac held a unique stance and then repelled the man with his spear. And then Cormac advanced to him very quickly at top speed. Then Cormac opened up his eye patch so that only Diego could see. That eye! Damn you! Cormac then looked directly at his eyes and without noticing, activated a spell on him. Then he proceeded to palm strike him, and the opponent fell unconscious. Forgive me, for you are too young to learn of my burden. He then quickly covered his eye. It looks like we have a winner. Cormac Udo wins. Meanwhile, Aeneas from afar checks his special list. He's pretty good. Quite energetic for a man of his age. Reinhardt smiled. Indeed, my lord. Looks like the results of this plan could be a success. Aeneas nodded, but then he thought to himself, I've gotten reports about this guy, Oliver. His magic is insane for a commoner. Something's been bothering me about him. In fact, I feel like him and the incident from years ago could be related somehow. Reinhardt then looked at him and replied, You mean the Lupus Institute incident, by any chance? Aeneas then shuddered and gave a quiet reply. Yeah, I just hope this is all a coincidence. But then there's this Udo fellow. Aeneas stared at his file. I can't help but feel his movements look familiar somehow. Reinhardt then looks at him. Huh? What do you mean by that? Explain. Aeneas replied, I'm probably just overthinking it, but everything here otherwise is going well. Alas, I just can't help but worry about those two. Cormac Udo and Dion Oliver Nevins. Aeneas then stared at the cloud and waved. Reinhardt stayed in silence and thought to himself for the rest of the match.